where did our concept of human rights come from? I've already mentioned this in reference to Genesis 1, we're made in the image of God. But to define more what our human rights are, the Ten Commandments actually give it to us. Now, the Ten Commandments are moral boundaries for a society, and they've been misinterpreted 30, 40 years ago as limiting our fun, so we don't kind of like them. But this really flips it upside down and completely misunderstands the point. You see, do not murder says, in terms of human rights, that you have the right to life. You have the right to the protection of your life, no matter who's in power and how powerful they are. You have the right to feel safe within a community because you shouldn't be scared of having your life taken away from you. Do not steal says that you have the right to private ownership of land and possessions. This, therefore, in one sentence, counteracts the philosophy of communism, which is about the government ownership of land and the means of production, meaning business. Do not commit adultery. Is your right in a balanced society to be in a marriage where you're not at fear of being betrayed, but more so it's about the rights of children to grow up in a stable home environment that will help to produce good mental health and good emotional health. To analyse the Ten Commandments as a whole, I suggest that the first three are about God's rights. God says, I am God, I made you and you are my creation. I have the right to be worshipped, that you worship no idols and you don't misuse my name. But the next seven are about our rights. And to look at the Sabbath as an example, it's not made for God, it's made for us. For example, if I ended up being a slave, the law of the Sabbath says that I still get a day off and get rest. It's pretty important. But it also says that I deserve to be recognised and known for who I am, not just for what I do. The fact that you rest from your work says that your work doesn't define your core identity. Vishal Mangalwadi is an Indian philosopher who critiques Hindu Indian culture and its caste system, but also who critiques Western culture. And if you can excuse a play on words, which is really dumb, but democracy, demos, people, krisi meaning rule, the rule of the people. You could also say that it's a demonstration as to how crazy we are. And that's really what Vishal Mangalwadi would say when he looks at Western society. He says, here you are in arguably the freest, most prosperous and most equitable civilization, which New Zealand is a subset of, in human history, and you're throwing it away because you don't understand what you got or how you got it. He says there is no freedom without the rule of law, because otherwise my freedom can be used to take away your freedom. As an illustration, the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights was penned by Eleanor Roosevelt, who was a Christian. The only thing is that when they put it together, they had to leave the name God out, because they wanted this to be a declaration of human rights that would be applicable to all people of all different religious persuasions. The problem is that these values mean nothing if God doesn't exist. We should like the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights because they reflect Jewish Christian values. But if we're just advanced animals, as Charles Darwin has supposed, then a human is just an advanced animal. You're allowed to kill animals. The end can justify the means. And as an illustration, the OIC is the Organisation of Islamic Cooperation. And in the year 2000 in Cairo, they looked at all of this and said, what gives you the right to tell us what human rights are? And they decided to create their own list, which for them included the right to Sharia law, the right to subjugate women, and the right for men to beat their wives. You live in one of the most free nations on planet Earth, one of the most prosperous nations on planet Earth, one of the most equitable nations on planet Earth, and in all of human history. Can I encourage you as Christians that I believe you have a responsibility to be engaged with the issues of our nation. You are citizens of this nation. Remember, democracies have citizens, kings have subjects.